Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the second installment of the saga, which came out at the ridiculous lightning speed of just 1 year after the release of the first installment, which, considering all the sets that had to be built, like the Chamber of Secrets, the amount of acting that had to be done in this near 3-hour film, and all the post-production that needed to happen, from the flying car, the Snape Malfoy fashions with the spell and the dueling club, Fawkes the Phoenix, and of course the Basilisk. It really is quite nuts when you think about the amount of work that was done in time for its release just 12 months from the first, considering that this was 2002 and special effects were still in their relatively formative days. Okay, so this film still has plenty of pointy-hatted, funky-fashioned witches and wizards amidst still a very sunny-paleted wizarding world. For me, Harry's stripy maroon-coloured rugby jumper gets the film off to a scrunch-up-your-face start. It's not my favourite, nor is his haircut. But that's really not important. What is important is how fabulous and rich this world was continued to be painted, despite the film tending to draw extreme responses, meaning it's either people's favourite or more commonly least favourite of the entire series. I probably side with the latter, and it's not because of the amount of blinking acting that goes on, but because one of the prominent magical beasts in the film are naturally big, gigantic spiders. And that's coming from someone who lives in Australia. There's also the fact that Hermione goes and gets petrified halfway through the film, which is a major bummer for those who love the trio working as, well, a trio. Oh, and then there's Gilderoy Lockhart just being a big poop brain of a defense against the dark arts teacher, which I'm blaming for contributing to the film having hardly any magic in it whatsoever. And I mean spells specifically. There's more sword wielding and poor magic being cast in it by Ron's self-inflicting broken wand than like top-notch great magic. If this film was to have one purpose for the remainder of the series that wasn't just the destruction of one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, I would say that it was to introduce darling wee little Dobby. Even though he's more grimy than sweet in the second installment, I recently rewatched the film and it was only then that I noticed that he had a little prickly goatee in this early film that thank goodness was later removed, as honestly I don't think his passing would have pulled so many tearful responses had the little spiky thing been there in Deathly Hallows Part 1. In Deathly Hallows Part 1, one of my favourite lines is Dobby's assurance that he only ever means to maim or seriously injure. But going back and watching the rogue bludger chase Harry around the pitch like a cannonball, I start to seriously question if that was Dobby only trying to put Harry out of action. I would have been about 5 or 6 when I first watched this film, and perhaps because my brain was a tad more, well, a smidge smaller at that age, I remember this film scaring the bejeebers out of me. I mean honestly, from the hand in Borgin and Burke's that snaps around Harry's, to the voices coming from the wall, to the whole stranger danger element with Tom Riddle in the diary, and innocent victims being snatched one by one by an unknown monster, it's a recipe for a horror film. Speaking of the subtle stranger danger lesson that is conveyed in the film, there's also another with Colin Creevy's camera and celebrity obsession, which sort of feels like a tale of caution about young people's obsessions with phones and social media in the age of documenting everything. As the audience is always given Harry's point of view, we see that Colin's enthusiasm and fanning over Harry is just bloody annoying. This failing to see Harry as a real-life person seems like a fab and perhaps incidental lesson conveyed to the future social media / pop culture obsessing generations to come. The real-life animals in this film are plentiful and fabulous, although it is a little depressing to see a baboon, raccoon, and various other animals in super small cages around the edge of the room that McGonagall's transfiguration class happens in. A 2D animal that you might have missed is the drawing of Hedwig in Harry's bedroom back at Privet Drive, which I seriously love and contributes to the very lived-in world feeling which Harry's wizarding world always achieves so well. I think such low-budget touches like those children's drawings are why the Harry Potter series is so great. It has the necessary flourishes of special effect magic, but also many homey elements that make the world relatable to audiences and genuine in appearances, compared to a little wee Fantastic Beasts world, which I'm yet to feel so warmly about. Speaking of owls, except real ones this time, anyone else seriously concerned for Hedwig when Harry and Ron ram into the barrier that goes to platform 9 3/4? I seriously hope there was a toy Hedwig taking most of the blunt force, and onto another animal, Fang this time, is once again the true chilled out legend when it comes to being moral support for Harry and Ron when they're entering the Forbidden Forest. The fact that he wasn't eaten and escaped without a scratch from Aragog's children, I think says mountains for his ability to understand human communication cues and whatnot. Speaking of communicating with humans, why can Aragog speak English? I don't think I remember reading a why to this in the book. Does anyone know? Or is it just a phenomenon that happens when a spider's brain gets that big, that suddenly has an ability to speak another language? Changing tune to another Hogwarts member that has a lot of limbs, I couldn't help but think while watching Harry and Ron being beaten up by the Fort Anglia by the Whomping Willow that a seriously good Universal Studios Harry Potter World ride would be one involving a similar situation to what the pair find themselves in with the Whomping Willow. A super subtle but nice character, let's call it mood, that I appreciate in the film is how Snape reacts to the situation of the Chamber of Secrets being open. Okay, so he doesn't have that much to say or do in the film, but in the odd scene he is in, he does appear to be, say, moderately concerned for the future of the school and fate of Ginny Weasley. Actually, now I just said that, perhaps because Ginny undoubtedly looks a lot like Harry's mother, Lily. Okay, that could be reading too much into it, but it does seem like a possible reason to why he generally does seem saddened and concerned by the events unfolding. This genuine concern only seems parallel to that he shows, again it's subtle and you have to be looking for it, but when Cedric Diggory is discovered to be dead after Harry's ordeal in the graveyard with Voldemort in Goblet of Fire. I know the matter of whether Snape is a good or bad character is a hotly debated issue, but seeing him not at all pleased by a student's doomed fate, and again, I'm talking by facial expressions and body language alone, makes me think how, yeah, he might be someone who's too enthusiastic about the dark arts, but he's still a teacher. And no matter how well you know your stuff, you still have to spend a lot of time with young people and a lot of time explaining things and marking work, which does require an amount of tolerance and patience, even if he never really appears to show it. Anywho, a favourite moment from the film is when the opinions about Professor Lockhart's capabilities are shared between McGonagall and Snape, when they tell him that they'll leave it to him to fight off the basilisk by himself. That's some quality teamwork against the common thick-head that is. Speaking of Professor Lockhart, I know down in the Chamber of Secrets he uses Ron's faulty and unpredictable wand to try and obliviate Harry's memory, but the subsequent roof falling in that happens seems so ridiculously OTT. Also, the stupid wand waving he does to perform the spell couldn't contrast more to the obliviate spells Hermione performs in Deathly Hallows Part 1 on her parents and those Death Eaters. But blah blah blah, I don't really care, it's just kind of super amusing. In my first Harry Potter but vegan, I kept a little tally of how many characters would later be recast, and unless I'm mistaken, it's really only young Voldemort I think in this second installment that would later be played by another. My favourite young Voldemort definitely has to be the one in Slughorn's memory, and even though logistically it could just never have worked for those two actors to be the same, but it would have been so flippin' cool to see that latter Voldemort be the one down in the Chamber of Secrets. Anyone feel me? My favourite bit in the fight scene against the basilisk is when Harry throws the stone down the corridor when he's cornered by the snake. I remember thinking while watching this for the first time that you only have to make a noise where you were not to fool the basilisk, and so when Harry finally did that, I totally went, that's how you do it. Also, when Fawkes comes along, sheds a few tears and saves the day, the eye contact that the bird and Harry shares is so close. I'm always surprised they don't seal off their deep and meaningful moment with a little kiss. I've been rambling on for long enough now, so I'll round off, but not before commenting on the cheesiest moment that happens in this film from the entire series. When Hagrid returns from Azkaban into the Great Hall, late because of Ron using his seriously old out Errol for the mission of sending out Hagrid's release papers. Errol, by the way, is a name which I'm totally hands down dibsing for a future senior sits rescue dog name of mine. Anyway, the cheese festy applause that follows is too much. Although as cringy as I find it, it never fails to make me well up just like a tinsy teeny tiny bit, so I guess one way or another it does get the job done. But onto the food! It's a lot sparser and not as scrumptious looking in this one for sure, but I did my best at adding my own spin to it to ensure there are genuinely fab recipes for you to take with you on your way. So thank you for letting me ramble on, honey bunches. I hope you found this essay part of the video to be more enjoyable than what Harry's right arm goes through in the film, which is the classic quadruple whammy, I think that's for, quadruple whammy of being broken, have your bones removed, have your bones regrown, and then stabbed by a basilisk fang to top it all off. Anywho, so let's get cooking in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, but vegan. Hello honey bunches! So the first thing I'm veganising is this horrendous looking cake that Aunt Petunia makes, with like the most unnatural colours, like purple and green, and then glacé cherries. No one likes them, Petunia. Anyway, so I took that to be like a meringue layer cake, and this one is much more natural looking and enjoyable by all. I've already had like 2 commissiony asks for it for birthdays, so I'd say that's a win. Yeah, it's really good. So you want to put the water from a can of chickpeas, an unsalted or no salt or low salt kind of can of chickpeas, otherwise you might get a slightly interesting tasting meringue. Whisk that with electric beaters until soft peaks form. Also want to add vinegar to it when you whisk it. This isn't my recipe because it's quite a technical thing, and so I will link that below, and it's on my blog post which one I used, and I sort of just made it my own with the everything that's going on around it. So in a small bowl you want to whisk together caster sugar, arrowroot powder and salt, and while the electric beaters are running, add it in increments, and this will like blow it up even more and it will become super stiff and glossy and epic looking. And if you wanted to, for shits and giggles I guess, hold the bowl upside down, you would find that it doesn't fall out. So happy days. Yeah. Look at that. That's what you want. That's the stuff. And then you just want to add some vanilla. I use vanilla bean paste, but you could use extract or essence, whatever you've got. Yeah, look how stiff that is. That is one quality bowl of meringue. So then you just want to pipe like 2 discs on baking trays. I did this on 2 different baking trays, and I just used a tea towel to make sure my tray wouldn't slide around when I was doing the piping. So I sort of drew a circle, filled it in, and then made it a bit taller on the sides and smoothed over the middle. And then yeah, do another one. Look, mine were not exactly the same size and it turned out fine. And then once you've got them, you can sort of even up the amount of mixture in each of meringue, and then cook them in a slow oven. Emphasis on slow, not fan forced. I made the mistake of fan forcing mine for about like the first half an hour of cooking, which meant they like totally lost their shape, but look, they still look good. Yeah, they'll just hold their shape a lot better if you don't be a silly sausage and do what I did. So for the cream, I used Koyo natural yogurt, whisked that, beat it until stiff, then added some maple syrup and vanilla. Then I put like half of it in a container to go in the fridge, and then I added raspberries to the other half, so it would sort of be like a 2-tone, 1 vanilla, 1 like raspberry pink, to go in my meringue stack. Meringue stack. Ew, that sounds so tacky. Okay, so you want to start with 1 meringue, then add some of the cream, and then add fresh fruit, whatever's in season, whatever you like, and then meringue, cream, and more fruit. And some mint leaves would have been great on top. That's a natural green colour to show Aunt Petunia how it's done. But yeah, that's it, and this is definitely best eaten fresh. It sort of collapses a little after half a day, so yeah, definitely do the fresh fruit and assemble it just before you want to eat it, but it's so good and I've totally had so many rave reviews, so highly recommend honey bunches. Then the second recipe I'm veganising is these little sleeping draft cupcakes that Crab and Goyle seem to definitely enjoy, and they're gluten free as well, which might be helpful for some of you. And they've got a chocolate buttercream, which I think you're gonna love. I'm definitely gonna be using it on all my future icing needs, I guess. It's so good, and definitely tastes like more professional stuff you get in like a vegan bake shop. So it's a simple method of whisking the dry ingredients together, making a well in the center, then whisking some plant milk, grapeseed oil and vanilla together, and then pouring the wet into the dry and slowly incorporating it like in central motions going outwards. That just is a way that minimizes lumps. Fun fact. And this mixture is perfect for 12 cupcakes. We like even and fab numerical pleasing recipes, so yeah, they go in the oven. Don't overcook them, it's very tempting. And then for the buttercream, which I made in the meantime, it uses vegetable shortening. I played around with this, and that's just kofa. If you didn't know, if you're an Australian, you're like, oh, that's what that is, because that's like an ancient ingredient that's been around for ages. Then you cut it into small cubes, make sure it's softened, beat it with butter, then add in your cocoa powder, beat that again, and then you want to add some salt, some vanilla, some plant milk and icing sugar, and you like beat it for a little while and it will sort of lighten in colour and become just fab looking, and it doesn't taste as sweet as an icing with just butter in it, which I don't know how it does it considering it still has the same amount of icing sugar in it, so a bit odd, but yeah. And then you just want to ice those bad boys, and I put some white chocolate on top, but that's not essential. And yeah, that's what they taste like, honey bunches. I hope you like these 2 recipes, that they're really groovy, and yeah, thanks for watching and listening to me ramble on about them. Thank you for watching, honey bunches. I hope you find these recipes at least as delicious as Harry finds the polyjuice potion in the film, which, if you notice, Harry continues to drink the goblin tasting goop potion after the first sip as if it's not that bad. Mental. Be sure to catch the rest of the Harry Potter vegan series Honey Bunches if you fancy by subscribing even if it's just for a little bit while I finish the series. That would be awesome. Or if you really like what you see, be sure to catch also the rest of these but vegans that I've done, which I generally do on my favourite foodie, including films, so check them out. Catch me on Instagram if you like honey bunches, and I'll see you in the next installment super soon.